So today we're talking about ser and estar, and I know that this is a review for you guys, but just to kind of refresh your memory on ser versus estar, remember that they both mean to be, but they mean kind of two different to be's. When a lot of people like to say that ser is permanent and that estar is temporary, and to an extent we can say that. But as as the honors kids, you guys have to understand what that means and when that doesn't exactly take place. So for ser, you can kind of put these in two different categories. For ser, you're describing characteristics of things or people. So this is a permanent characteristic of somebody. Michael is tall. Katie is smart. Things like that. Permanent characteristics of these people, or of the things. Like if you're describing food, the fries are hot. Fries are always hot, or they at least should be always hot. Or the soup is hot. It shouldn't be cold, of course, unless it's gazpacho. But if it's a permanent characteristic or a characteristic of how it normally is or should be, then you're going to use the verb ser. Same thing to talk about where somebody's from, which is their origin. Remember, soy de Mantino, soy de Bourbonnais, whatever. To talk about where somebody's from, what their nationality is. Soy mexicano, soy estadounidense, or their profession. Soy profesora, LS, mecánico, or whatever. To talk about their origin, nationality, and profession. Again, those three things are pretty permanent. Yeah, I know a lot of you are saying, well, isn't a profession something that you can change? It is. But it's not something that's going to change from day to day, and it's not going to be something that changes, all the time. It's a pretty permanent thing. Soy profesora. I'm a teacher. I'm always going to be a teacher, but or soy mecánico. That may change. You may not be a mecánico forever, but for right now, and probably for a little while, you're going to be a mecánico. So profession, although maybe not permanent, it's something that is more permanent than other things. So when we say permanent, we mean things that are regular, things that aren't changing daily. Also, ser, to talk about when and where something takes place. So obviously we use ser to talk about time, which is what this here says, el concierto es el viernes. Remember, that's technically it's time because we're talking about a day. Time, day, date, all that stuff is going to be ser. Es viernes, es el 14 de noviembre, anything like that. And then just say where something takes place. Not to say where something is, but to say where it takes place. For example, the concert. El concierto es en el teatro. The concert is in the theater. We're saying where it takes place. We're not saying its location. We're saying where it takes place. Hopefully you can see the difference between that. The concert is kind of a inanimate object. And the word concert is something that you can't kind of contain. Therefore, it really can't have a quote-unquote location. Where it takes place is en el teatro, things like that. When you're talking about somebody else, then when you're going to use estar to indicate location. And the last thing to talk about with ser is to indicate possession. Something is hers. La guitarra es de Elisa. Or es mi lápiz. That's my pencil. Whatever the case may be. That's when you're going to use ser. And then estar, remember, I don't know if you heard this before, but how you feel and where you are, always use the verb estar. So how you feel is like, ¿Cómo estás? How are you? I don't want to know ¿Cómo eres? What are you like? I want to know how are you? ¿Cómo estás? These two, ¿Cómo eres and ¿Cómo estás? When you translate them, they are asking the same thing. How are you? ¿Cómo estás? Es how are you right now or today or temporarily. ¿Cómo eres means what kind of person are you? Are you tall? Are you pretty? Are you smart? Are you athletic? So these two things, these ¿Cómo estás and ¿Cómo eres, although they translate into the same question, they don't mean the same thing. ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Estoy cansado. Estoy preocupado. Estoy bien. Estoy mal. And ¿Cómo eres is what do you like? So, soy deportista. Soy cómica. Soy inteligente. Any of those. So, estar, we say, is temporary, but it's temporary characteristics. Like, it's closed. Like the store is closed right now. Again, you can remember that because ado and ido go at the end of this. So it's kind of like what we just talked about. Using estar plus ado or ido to talk about something's, kind of temporary condition. El teatro está cerrado. It's closed right now. If we said el teatro es cerrado, that would mean that the theater is closed for good. So if a theater closes down and it never shows movies again, you would say es cerrado. But if it's closed right now, if it opens later on in the day, you would say está cerrado. It's like a door. Also, emotional states or conditions. So how are you feeling? ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien. Estoy nerviosa. Estoy anything like that. So talk about something that is temporarily how you feel. It's your temporary characteristic or condition. To indicate location, where something is. El conjunto está en el escenario. It's on the stage. Or, ¿dónde está mi lápiz? Está en mi escritorio. Where's my pencil? It's on my desk. To indicate something or someone's location. And to form the progressive tense, which you guys all talked about last year, I'm sure. That's the verb estar plus ando, A-N-D-O, or E-N-D-O. So, el bailarín está interpretando a Cabral. The dancer is interpreting. So this is ing in English. And that's when you would use estar with that. So anytime you see ando or yendo, you automatically know that it's going to be estar. And same thing with ado or ido, you automatically know it's going to be estar. So long as we're talking about temporary conditions. Now, sometimes depending on if you use ser or estar, it means a different thing. For example, you can see down here, la bailarina es bonita. She's a pretty person. But if you said, oh, estás muy bonita, you're telling her that she looks really pretty today. Perhaps she doesn't always look like that, or perhaps she's exceptionally pretty today. Or for example, the word aburrido, boring. You could say es aburrido, he's boring, he's a boring guy. Or you could say está aburrido, he's bored. Sometimes using those different things make the whole meaning change. El cantante es rico, he's wealthy. Or el postre está rico, it tastes good. So it's a rich food. So it all depends on whether you're using ser or estar. So when you're using, for example, with the word verde, when you say el guisante es verde, the pea is green. A pea is always green, that's why we're going to call it verde. But if, for example, if you say la manzana está verde, you're saying that the apple is ripe. You're saying that it's ready, that it is ripe. So it all depends on whether you use ser or estar. Ser is pretty permanent, estar is pretty temporary, kind of goes like that. Pretty easy. We're going to do some more work with that tomorrow. But if you guys could do this, invitación a caras y caretas, this activity 32 right here on your screen, that would be really good. If you could do it in homework and label it activity 32 so I could check it out tomorrow and give you some points for it, that would be really good. Have a good night.